What's going on, folks? Ted from Immersion here, and continuing on our Dragonlance Shadow of the Dragon Queen coverage, we are going to be talking about the Kender race today. So, before I jump into this, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so, and that's that. Let's dive in. So, here you can see the Kender race, similar in a lot of veins to a halfling. But if we were to scroll down and take a look, the Kender was revisited once. We had an original Unearthed Arcana from the Heroes of Krynn. It was revisited in the Heroes of Krynn Revisited Unearthed Arcana, and it very closely resembles that. There is one small tweak, which I will talk about here. So you are considered humanoid, you are small size, you have a walking speed of 30 feet, and they originally had an ability called Fearless. Fearless used to state in the Unearthed Arcana Revisited, you are immune to the frightened condition. This would have been the first time we'd seen a flat-out immunity to a condition like that. I mean, we had seen for a little while in the Yuan Ti immunity to the poison condition. We had seen again immunity to the frightened condition. However, that has been shifted to now be what is listed here as fearless. You have advantage on saving throws to make or avoid. I'm sorry, to make you make to avoid. Wow. Or end the frightened condition on yourself. So advantage on against frightened, which is a standard thing. Some halflings have that. However, when you fail a saving throw to avoid or end the frightened condition on yourself, you can instead choose to succeed. Once you do that, you can't do it again until you finish a long rest. So, like a mini, super condensed, specific version of a legendary resistance, in that if you fail, you can choose to succeed. So, I guess this is sort of the way they're mitigating. Instead of giving them flat out immunity to the frightened condition, they're giving them advantage on checks against it, saving throws against it, and the potential ability to succeed on one failed one. So, I mean, I guess that kind of works out in the long run, depending on the fear effect. Some things, once you're immune to the fear effect once, you're immune for 24 hours. So, not as powerful as flat out immunity, but still useful nonetheless. Kender aptitude remains the same, which is just proficiency with a skill. From the list of you pick one of insight, investigation, sleight of hand, stealth, or survival. And lastly, you also get this taunt feature. As a bonus action, you can unleash a string of provoking words at a creature within 60 feet that can hear and understand you. They don't have to see you, they just have to hear and understand you. The target must succeed on a wisdom saving throw, or it has disadvantage on attack rolls against targets other than you until the start of your next turn. This DC is based off of your intelligence, wisdom, or charisma. You choose that when you pick the race, and you can do this bonus action proficiency bonus times per long rest. It's a useful ability. We've seen things similar to this in older editions. I actually would prefer if this was something not necessarily tied to the Kender race, but perhaps tied to a skill, perhaps a feat, some sort of combat-based feat. You could instead of calling it taunt, I mean, you could just call it taunt, right? This is like a traditional taunt mechanic we see kind of in MMOs, where you're drawing the aggro to yourself to have people fight. I think, I mean, maybe the concept behind tying this to a specific race is that if it was too widely available, it would be too powerful. I don't know, but I'm sure you and I could both imagine a situation where someone like a barbarian who doesn't have access to a ton, again, not 100% of the time, but not access to a ton of bonus action utility for the most part outside of their initial entering into a rage, the barbarian being able to taunt and then, go into a rage and then taunt and then give enemies, if they fail the saving throw, disadvantage on attack rolls against creatures other than the barbarian who's already bolstered by rage. Again, perhaps maybe a paladin could also be, this would be very useful on, especially because you're going to probably invest a lot in charisma as a paladin, and again, you don't necessarily need to as a barbarian. So I really like this taunt mechanic a lot. I'd like to see it extended outside of just the Kender race, but I don't know. I'll be honest with you, I've never been a huge fan of halflings in 5e. This does just kind of feel like a lesser version of a halfling, if I'm being honest. You see a lot of stuff here. I mean, the current versions of halflings in the player's handbook have 25 feet of movement. Seems like Wizards of the Coast is going away from that with all future races, and it doesn't seem like they're going to be doing that again with what we've seen from 1D&D. But again, I get that Kender is kind of iconic to the world of Krynn and Dragonlance, so I get why it needed to be here. But for me personally, I'd rather have the ability to re-roll the rolls of a natural one as a halfling than the ability to taunt. More often than not, again, not 100% of the time, people tend to put halflings in Kender, I assume, into roles more suited to like things like a rogue, stealth. I mean, even the Kender aptitude, the skill list is a very roguish skill list, right? Insight, investigation, sleight of hand, stealth, or survival kind of leans more to the stealthier side of things. Not that you have to be, but yeah, like I said, I would rather, in my opinion, just play a halfling than a Kender. Although, like I said, the taunt mechanic does catch my interest. I don't know. Maybe I'm way off base, though. Like I said, I don't have the massive knowledge of Dragonlance. I have a couple of the books. I'm about to get started on reading some of the older stuff. I have also the newer book. I did a while ago watch the really bad animated Dragonlance movie. This was probably 7, 8 years ago because I found it in its entirety on YouTube. But I've been told that that's a horrible representation of Dragonlance, so I don't know. Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. We'll cover the backgrounds next because they kind of roll into that feat discussion. I'll see you next time.